Hi folks, Charles here again. As Dan told you that the thing that I'm going to be teaching on is about Moloch, and if you haven't heard too much about him, he's a Canaanite god. To give you an idea of how this god was worshipped, the way that it would work, it actually would have been done in this valley right here. In its day, it would have been known from a couple names. It was known as the Valley of Gehenna or the Valley of Drums. The reason why it was known as these two things is because the god Moloch was actually made and worshipped by these statues that were made of bronze, and they would have had it would have had an ox's head and would have had its arms out like this to be able to hold things. But at the base of the statue, there was actually a hole to put fires in. And the way that you offered sacrifices to this god, it was known as passing through the fire. And the way that you did this was by offering your firstborn child. You would put it on the hands of the god of Moloch, on the statue, and you would place a fire at the belly of Moloch. And as the fire would heat up the bronze, it would slowly sizzle and cook alive your child as the sacrifice to him. The reason why it was known as the Valley of Drums is because whenever this would happen, the screams of the children, would be so intense and so awful that they would have to beat war drums as loud as possible to drown out the sound of these people, their families, of their children just dying and slowly being cooked alive in front of them. The reason why it was known as the Valley of Gehenna is because even over these drums, even over this sound of just roaring drums being beat through there, you could still hear the screams of children daily. And now this is an interesting fact, is that in 1 Kings 11:7, then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the people of Ammon. If you look to my left, that's where the old city of David was. This is probably the outer wall was probably built around the time of Hezekiah. But Solomon's people, in the time whenever he was ruling, would not have been that far over that hill. They easily would have been able to hear this and to know that this god was being worshipped just beyond their reach, just over this hill. And the fact is that Solomon, even the wisest man of all the earth, had fallen and come to worship this idol, and even built high places for him to be worshipped. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up today, the application for us today, how this God is still being worshipped today is, would you suggest abortion perhaps? And I think this is important for the people of my generation because it seems to be so prevalent, especially with pro-choice and all of these ideas that are coming up in our government, and even our own president is starting to support this idea. And I think we have to realize that these old gods, how these things are still applicable today, is that they're still being worshipped today. This God, he was worshipped by sacrificing the firstborn child, and with abortion, this is happening just as much today. But the truth is that we can't simply be those who are against it. We can't just say, hey, I'm against abortion. I'm not okay with this. We have to be more than that. We have to be both against it and willing to help to keep that from happening anymore. Because as I said, Solomon, he built high places to this God. But later on in 2 Kings 23:10, let's see. Well, actually, that's not the reference. But later on, Josiah comes around. And he doesn't just say that he's against it. He doesn't just say to the people, you shouldn't do this, you need to not build high places to Moloch, but rather he comes here and he destroys all of the high places. He removes them from this area because he's not willing to let any more of the children of his people pass through the fires. In Jeremiah 32:35, it says, and they built high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire to Moloch, which I did not command them, nor did it come to my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. God even says in Leviticus that any man or any person that has their child be passed through the fires to Moloch, that they should be commanded and put to death. If there is a family or someone who notices a family, who knows of a family that's causing their children to pass through the fires of Moloch, if they don't stop them, if they don't actually go beyond themselves to to make life prevail and to stop these people from passing their children on through the fire, they are commanded to leave and they are commanded to death as well. And I think, as I said in my last teaching, that we've kind of lost this idea of reverence. I think we've also lost the value of life. We've come so much into this new age era of choice and having liberty, and part of that has even come from this overwhelming feeling of grace, but it's this cheap grace that we're able to sin and be okay with it because God has covered those sins. But we need to be better than that. I need to be better than that. I need to go beyond myself and really seek for life. Our first commandment is to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. But the second is to love everyone else, love our neighbors just as much as we love ourselves. And so my challenge for everyone here is that we would stand for what is right, that we would stand for life. But even more than that, as opposed to just standing against death, we would fight for life. If you know a family, if you know a young couple perhaps that is going to try to go and take it and use an abortion, perhaps talk with them, go to them and seek about having that child offered up for adoption, or even offering to adopt that child ourselves. Whenever Obama was asked the question, why is it that you support abortion? Why is it that you support this awful thing? He asked the question, well, if we didn't have abortion, what would we do with all of the children? And in that moment, no one answered a thing, and I think that was the moment for the church. That was the moment for the church to stand up and say, we'll take care of them. So that's my challenge for us today. That's my challenge for those who are coming up in my generation that will soon be the leaders of this country. Fight for life. Fight for it. Well, that's Charles Rash for Young Lions.
Okay, folks, that concludes the teaching from the Valley of Hinnom, or Gehenna here, and your application questions are as follows. 1, what was the difference between Peter and Judas in terms of their betrayal? And how about in terms of their repentance? Number 2, what can wash away my sin? Take some time this week and connect the dots between the Passover lamb of Egypt being shed with the blood on the doorposts, the scarlet cord that Rahab put in the window or her dwelling place to make sure that it was a sign to the Israelis as they were coming to destroy Jericho. Remember the third cup of Passover, the cup of redemption that Jesus used when he talked about his blood. And of course, the blood that was shed on the pavement at the Praetorium, as well as emptied at Golgotha. So in this field of blood, let's remember his blood and the significance of blood, knowing that there's only one thing that can wash away sins. And without the shedding of blood, there can be no forgiveness. And then finally, how does the worship of Moloch relate to the subject of abortion today? And what's your personal stance on this? I think Charles talked about a call to action for you all. And just to steal some of Charles' reflections as we were walking up to this end, he says it's amazing to see that this valley of Gehenna, hell, was actually also a dump where they burn things, smoke always rising, how it's been transformed to a beautiful park, concerts in the park, luscious green fields right here. It's amazing how God can do transformation still in this day. So God bless you, and we'll come at you again very soon with another edition of Young Lions Club from Israel.
That makes me white as snow, no. makes me white as snow. No other fount I know, nothing but the blood of Jesus.